Back to the series. This is the semifinals match, ladies and gentlemen, for the Go4Sc2 monthly finals. It's worth noting the winner of this will go on to fight against Elaser in the grand finals, so either ZVZ or ZVP finisher. Spawning up here on the top right, though, the last of his race today, the Protoss Socke.
In the bottom left, as the red Zerg, it is Hyun.
I can't help but look at his name, by the way, and I just go suck.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that keeps my foot from getting too chilly during the winter. The suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I knew it was, like, you pronounce the E for, like, 2 years.
Yeah, I get pretty reamed out about that. People get so upset about pronunciations, and I think at this point, I try, but then I've got, like, the ignorant North American card I can always play. We don't learn to speak good over here on the west side of the world.
We never get to say that to anyone else, though. Like, even when people are, like, their native language is in English, we never make fun of them. So when our native English,
Yeah.
our native tongue is English, and we can't pronounce sake correctly, suddenly we're the bad guys.
Well, whatever the case may be. We'll see how he ends up in this game. Again, like a lot of what Socke did last game, I think he had a really nice start. Like a 4-gate off 2 bases is strong, especially because Hyun did not scout that coming. His reactions were late, and he almost lost the third for it. But it was perhaps the over-dedication, maybe it was the lack of macro behind it, whatever the case may be. I mentioned it before the game started during the commercial break, and I'll say it again. Socke is not a player who, like, you see some players who they fall apart after losing once. Like, they lose the first game in a best of 3, they're going to lose the rest of the games in that best of 3. Best of 5, best of 7, doesn't matter. But he's a pretty strong player, and I've yet to see his emotions really get to him, for him to really beat himself up or get too, I guess, I don't know,
Wow.
rustled about games like that.
So this game is going to go for Nexus first. And Hyun, of course, did scout that, as we can see. But he's just going to go and throw down, he was going to go for 3 hatch, 4 pool. Socke decides, like, okay, last time I made the mistake of, like, not countering your greed with my own greed, so let's go ahead and do that. I was thinking about last game, and also, like, I didn't actually mention it, but I should have noticed, like, Socke only had 2 gateways at the front, and usually you put all your gateways at the front. You kind of just give away whether you're going 2 or 3 or 4 gateways. He had actually built one in the main again, so that was really a well, like, thought attack, and that was actually, like, surprising that it didn't go ahead and kill Hyun's third at the very least.
Yeah, again, it's even made more impressive by the fact that Hyun, Spine Crawler was late, like, very awkward, didn't get much done. The Zerglings were not pre-prepared, there's no roaches.
Yeah, that's just, like, I'm looking at that now more and more, and I'm like, wow, I feel like Socke really should have gotten that third, like, no problem. And maybe even he thought that, he realizes that was a really early third, and this is something that I have a lot of, power behind, because I can see he doesn't have speeds or roaches, so that's why I decided to, like, stay there as long as he did, because, he was like, I got this, and then, well, suddenly he didn't. There's so many slow lings.
Well, speaking of slow, that's probably about how this game's going to open up, unless we see some gateways thrown down here pretty quick at Socke. To fill the downtime, we had another haiku post. Like, again, I don't know why you guys are being crazy poets today, but I'm absolutely digging it. So, Stank Wizard, first off, amazing name, says, luscious partoofs. Currency of victory. Make it rain, bitches. I like that one a lot, actually. I didn't know, like, I might actually need to save some of these and, like, do some, like, something with them, but Forge is going to come down to Socke for now, so he's not going to actually throw down, I don't know. If he does go for the extra gateways, I kind of feel like Hyun, he prepared for it already, or he held it off unprepared. If he scouts this now with the Overlord, and he's ready for it, it'll be even harder to do. So I wouldn't like for him to, like, really put in too much pressure with this.
Was not going to throw down a 4th one. Not yet, anyways. The 4th one last time was a little bit later, but he could be trying to hide the +1 and go for a 3-gate.
My favorite thing about 3 gates, though, is the fact that they can actually kill thirds still. You don't have to do, like, if you do the +1 timing instead, which is what he's doing, it becomes just as scary as the 4-gate, if not more scary. I kind of mentioned, like, imagine if this was happening with +1 last game, but I'm dead serious. For those who don't understand why I bring this up and make it a big deal, with +1 weapon upgrades, you 2-shot a Zergling instead of 3 with a Zealot, so less Zealots are more effective.
Yeah. I mean, the +1's not going to be timed up with the 3-gate attack. He even chooses to go ahead and, like, really commit, throwing on a pylon on the map and stuff, but
I really miss Trend. If you remember Samsung Galaxy's Trend, like, he had those perfect 3-gate, 7 Zealot knockdown third bases. Like, there was no one who could stop him from doing that. He did it perfectly.
Yeah. It looks like this +1 will not be effective, or immediately anyways, won't be effective immediately. Of course, they can line them up to go ahead and get a Twilight Council, get that +2, maybe go for Blink Stalkers, which we've been seeing more and more. I mean, we saw it with Todd. I feel like that was like when I realized this is like can be a really good build versus Zerg.
I think,
but like
well,
just a lot of Blink Stalkers.
you mentioned Tom, but I think Huck has probably got some of the best display of like ZVP.
That was all
Blink
ins
Stalkers.
though.
I know it's all ins, but I mean, when it comes to seeing, like, actually visualizing stalkers beating out hydralisks and roaches or whatever, like,
Well,
Huck's
I'm
the first
talking
person
about-
I think of.
Well, I'm talking about like going into the late game. I mean, it wasn't just versus the Roach Hydro. He would stick a majority stalkers well beyond the times of like when they're getting up to Vipers and whatnot. Like he would even care about Colossus for the longest time. But anyways, that might be exactly what Socke is doing. He's going to go ahead and throw down that Twilight Council. Lines up pretty well with that +1 to get the +2. Probably see Blink. Are we going to see the amazing wall off that we saw last night? Dude, did you see that Reddit post?
No.
It's
Dude,
it's on
I
the
made,
top.
hang on. Fair excuse here. I made the mistake of drinking on stream, forgetting that we were casting today. So, I kind of had to cut it down early and go to bed very quickly to sleep off my booze.
Well, you should, when you get the chance, go to Reddit. It's on the top. It's like this is art or something like that. It's a beautiful wall off on this map done by I forget, one of the Protoss who faced Army last night. But it was pretty good. Anyways, he's gonna push out here with a bunch of sentries.
9 centuries. This is no
9.
low amount. The problem is, though, +1 on sentry is not really that big of a deal. It's mostly the zealots that this affects. But there's already roaches out, so this is, I feel, a very weird attack.
This is, I mean, I see this often, and it seems to be just like, come at me, and then I recall. And if you literally don't have anything, like you're getting a third right now, and you're being like so greedy, maybe I can like tickle to death some drones. But that seems to be only what it's ever for, and it usually doesn't actually get anything done.
I'll get a sneaky pilot coming in, but it's not going to get too much use, sadly. God, he almost, I feel like he needs a recall. Yeah, there you go.
He's getting a little too far ahead of that mothership core.
But okay, so he's got the sentry count to actually deal with this army. Coming here towards the third, a couple cannons coming down a little bit delayed, a little bit late, but he needs to force a fight away from here. If he pops the overcharge at the third, the natural becomes the target. This is the downside to having to use that recall. Also using his own force fields actually ends up kind of forcing him to funnel through his own force fields into the army of Hyun. Not something you ever want to do as a Protoss player, of course, but backs up the sentries, so he doesn't have those getting shot at from the roaches in the front lines. Never want to give those away for free.
Those are pretty good force fields. The Zealots connected with the majority of the roaches off to the left, and then off to the right, there was just enough not to lose any sentries, but still kill them off. That was pretty good, and Socke holds with the majority of his units, and of course his third still up and running. Hyun is backing this up with a Spire, though, probably for mutas. He has a 1k in the bank, so at least a 10 plus that upgrade.
Okay. 11 Mutalisks are on the way. You usually see a Mutalisk swap in this matchup, but I feel like that comes a lot later after you've baited out a lot of different types of units. This is coming out early enough that as long as Socke doesn't lose a lot of his ground forces, he can deal with the first 11, the first 12, no problem. But it's more about the follow-through that gets a little bit scarier. You know, will there be Stargates thrown down? Does he worry about this being a huge investment? Will the Warp Prism get sniped off immediately? Because it's only Warp in
Hyun still has a lot on the ground, though, so it's not like he's only banking on these mutas.
Yeah, I mean, but the level 2 weapon upgrades is so scary to look at. A lot of this is Lings. Doesn't quite get those perfect donuts or force fields down. Just have to blink back. Exposing the sentries, however. Now the Mutalisk's going to focus these down, pick them off one at a time. Mothership Core doesn't have energy to do anything right now. The Warp Prism gets focused down before the Stalkers blink or warp in. But a pylon was snuck in while this was happening, and unfortunately, I feel like that Warp Prism, oh god, that Warp Prism was huge.
The Militia Corps had something, left in it. Probably a time warp because the recall would have gone off. But it could have been something. But instead, Socke just loses his entire army. He was trying to, do a little bit of counterattacking, and I was paying attention to those proxy pylons. But that's he just, he didn't have enough money. Or enough gateways actually.
I really feel like the warp prism was there, but the pylon was already down. He should have just warped into the pylon in the first place. There was such a huge amount of Stalkers to waste in that, and with how barely he lost that fight, I mean, it doesn't look too barely because of the Mutalisk, but with the roaches on the ground and the Zerglings being only just now getting there, I feel like that could have gone way better for Socke.
I think that was, I don't want to say it was a doomed attack, but it was definitely one that, like, I would like just not have taken had I had the choice. The problem was that Hyun was going to be all on top of him, right? Like Hyun saw that army and was like, I'm going now. I don't need to hesitate and wait for 20 more lings or whatever to give you time to think. So it's unfortunate, but Socke can come back. I mean, he's still just on Blink Stalkers, but they're very versatile. They can do stuff.
It's kind of cool actually seeing those carapace upgrades come through the needles instead of the damage, but falling back for the time being. Probe will not die somehow while this is going on. That probe's...
Hyun is maxed out, though.
Wait, the probe is... Okay, I was gonna say, it's like the boy who lived type scenario, but falls back from this. More Stalkers being warped in. Gotta get in range of the cannons to assist with this fight, but I think Hyun's just got a little too much for poor Socke to deal with at this point. There's the Mutilates chasing these into the Natch with some Zerglings accompanying these. The Roaches have been barely dealt with, and if this was level 3 weapon upgrades, maybe this looks a little bit different for the Stalkers, but unfortunately, still on only level 2. GG is going to be called, and Hyun will move on to the finals, taking the semis 2-0, where he will face against Elazer, a Zerg player who, we'll see how well he can handle this. Well, congrats on those of you winning your part 2s. I think the bets are pretty one-sided, so I don't think people are going to cash out too hardcore on this one, but that's the whole thing with the safe bets. They don't have good odds. Anyway, guys, we're going to play these commercial breaks.